We're going to talk about the Conservative conference now, which happened this week with James Sunderland, who's a Conservative MP. James, you're very welcome to the programme this morning. How are you?
Hi, Peter. Very well. Thank you very much indeed.
Can I just briefly, before we talk about Conservative conference, just get your reaction to what is happening in Israel? We've had full-throated support from Rishi Sunak and indeed Keir Starmer for against the terrorist attacks that have happened by Hamas. Full-throated support for Benjamin Netanyahu. What is your assessment of what happens there and what Britain's role, if any, should be?
What's happened in Israel is blatantly wrong. It's appalling. And let's not dress it up. It is a marauding terrorist attack that's resulted in the death of hundreds of men, women and children.
Yeah, it's ghastly. It really is. And I hope there is peace there as soon as possible. James, thank you for that. Just looking back on Conservative Party conference this week, it was a really strange, I think, conference in many ways, because to me, I'm political under the station as well, as you may know, when I was there reporting for talkTV. To me, there seemed to be three things happening. There seemed to be what Rishi Sunak and the government wanted us to talk about, which was about all their announcements on justice, on finance, on treasury, and his speech, which I thought wasn't terrible. I thought it was pretty good, actually. The second thing that was happening, to me anyway, was a sort of shadow leadership contest in terms of what Suella Braverman was saying, a little bit of Kemi Badenoch, maybe a few others as well. And then the third thing was HS2. Maybe we could take those in order, actually. What do you think in terms of the messages that the Conservative Party were trying to get out, and Rishi Sunak's speech specifically? What's your assessment of what he did and what he said, and how do you think that went?
It was a good conference. I mean, I went up there because I'm required to go up there. I was looking forward to it. The fringe events were very good on Monday and Tuesday. But for me, Wednesday was the big day. It was the speeches on the Wednesday morning. I thought the Prime Minister was absolutely excellent. For me, it was my brand of conservatism. It was education, it was aspiration, it was family, and it was a clear articulation of where he's going as the Prime Minister. And bringing Mrs. Sunak out onto the stage as well was an absolute masterstroke. It was a real rom-com movie in action. And
Rishi Sunak likes those, as we know.
It was just brilliant. And actually, Penny spoke really well. Johnny Mercer spoke very well. You then had Mrs. Sunak and Rishi, and I can tell you for a fact that every one of those delegates, everybody in that packed audience, left full of beans. They were inspired, they were enthused, and the glass is very much half full for me.
It is a half-full glass, as you say, but it is only half full. It's not fully full. There are lots and lots of work to do, not just in the local elections coming up for all parties, but specifically the Conservative Party. I mean, do you honestly think Susan Hall in London, for example, can win? Do you honestly think that the Conservatives will do well in those local elections in May?
Well, if people are voting in accordance with good policies and logic, Susan Hall would win hands down. She's a better candidate. She's got a good record. Sadiq Khan has been no friend to London whatsoever. And if you look at ULEZ, if you look at all of the other policies that he's presiding over, it's a complete disaster. Knife crime is up, crime is up. And, why on earth would you have Sadiq Khan again as a London mayor?
It's interesting, speaking of mayors, actually, in Rishi Sunak's speech, he specifically mentioned Andy Street, the mayor of the West Midlands, because Andy Street had been very, very vocal against the decision to scrap the northern leg of HS2. That sort of personal plea almost to Andy Street, surely that shows the weakness of Rishi Sunak in that there is a Metro mayor who doesn't really owe his allegiance to the Conservative Party. He's a very impressive figure in his own right as someone who's led John Lewis, made it a very, very profitable company. And in terms of HS2, obviously Rishi Sunak talked about £36 billion, that development being brought into other parts of transport and infrastructure and so on. But surely that was a huge disappointment. And didn't that go on too long within the conference as well? We were really only talking about it for the guts of 2 days. Didn't HS2 just overshadow what was in the conference?
Well, there is a difference, of course, between what actually happens at conference and how the media reports it. I mean, I'm a Berkshire MP. I appeared on BBC Radio Berkshire Wednesday afternoon to a Berkshire audience, and the BBC journalist, asked me about Nigel Farage, Liz Truss and HS2. I mean, come on.
So basically nothing to do with Berkshire.
Yeah, agreed. So, this is about the media also embellishing what's going on. These are routine meetings, routine conversations. Ministers were there. The Prime Minister was there for the entire period of the conference. Yeah. It was great. And in respect of HS2, I mean, Andy Street is a very credible, excellent mayor. He's put a lot of effort and energy into HS2 over the years. He carries huge favour locally. He's very popular locally. And quite clearly, he was not pleased by the decision to can the northern leg of HS2. But when the Prime Minister sat down with him and explained it, when it was obvious why that good decision had been taken, Andy Street he was in the loop. He was basically reassured of why the decision was taken. He probably doesn't like it, but a good Conservative is a loyal Conservative, and we are team players. This is not about self, this is about team, and Andy Street is a team player.
OK, I just want to play a clip from Suella Braverman's speech. I think this is to do with migration, because it really was a pretty barnstorming speech. Let's just play a little bit of what she had to say to Conservative Party conference in Manchester.
The wind of change that carried my own parents across the globe in the 20th century was a mere gust compared to the hurricane that is coming. In poll after poll, the British people have been clear. Immigration is already too high.
James, I'm sure you would agree with me that immigration is too high, and agree with Suella Braverman, but is the word hurricane the right word to use?
Well, the Home Secretary is a quality act, in my view. I'm her PPS, I work for her, I know her very well, and I see her at close quarter every day. I mean, the use of language is a matter for her. That was her speech, it was her language. And as a PPS, my role is to objectively and professionally serve and support her. That's what I do. So we had a rehearsal on the Tuesday, and it was obvious it was going to be a good speech. And she stands by every word that she said.
So it's really interesting you were there for the rehearsal. It must have been very, very interesting to see what she was doing there. I'm sure you wouldn't want to reveal any confidential information, but it is, I mean, you could tell even then that this was going to be a barnstormer?
Yeah, I mean, the auditorium was pretty empty, actually. Myself, all of her team, her SPADs, and there's been a huge amount of work gone into that speech. I mean, she's got a dedicated team. They absolutely love her. They work really hard for her. And the speech that was written was the product of a lot of hard work, and it was refined and re-refined, and it was very deliberate. And, you know, she's criticised a lot in the media, but she's the Home Secretary. She's perfectly placed to offer a view on these issues. She's briefed every day by officials. She's briefed every day by Border Force, by Chief Constables, Police and Crime Commissioners. She's demonised in the media, but she's perfectly qualified to offer a view.
Do you think perhaps that she is more of a campaigner than a doer? That is the worry that some people have, that she talks a really good game and talks about getting a handle on migration, but actually perhaps the execution, her governing, doesn't match up to that. What would you say to that criticism, James?
No, the truth is completely opposite, actually. I mean, I know really, really well. What sets Suella apart from many others that I've worked with is that she is firmly in the delivery space. This is a woman who has been an excellent Home Secretary for 12 months or thereabouts, and she is focused on output. And having worked for her, you know, very closely, she's excellent to work for. She's really easy to work for. You know, she's very benevolent, she's kind, she's very polite. Thank you, please, and thank you. She's very specific with what she wants. Her team are locked in right behind her, and she's really professional. What sets her apart is the fact that she is absolutely in the delivery space, and she's leading well a very difficult department to lead. That in itself speaks volumes.
Do you think she's the next leader of the Conservative Party?
Not for me to say. We have a fantastic Prime Minister. I couldn't support Rishi Sunak anymore. I'm very loyal to him. But what's good about the Conservative Party is we've got fantastic candidates in depth. We've got people of quality right across the party, both on the backbenches, in cabinet. We've got candidates waiting in the wings. We've got activists all over the country. This is a party full of top quality people.
But after 13 years, Rishi Sunak talking about change, saying that you look at the polls, you know, you can't deny that you're far behind. The Conservatives lost their deposit in Hamilton and in Hamilton West and Rutherglen, but obviously that was a very different context. I'm not saying for a second that that is going to happen nationwide, but clearly the Conservatives electorally are under a lot of pressure. Can the supertanker be turned around?
Completely. I don't believe the polls for a second. The polls are telling me that they've closed from 20 points behind or thereabouts to about 12, 14 points now. Those polls will continue to close. Labour has offered nothing in terms of plan or policies. Keir Starmer is flip-flopping from one crisis to the next. He can't decide what he wants. We've got a clear vision from Rishi Sunak. He spoke about being a change candidate, and he's absolutely right. The vision that he put forward on Wednesday was very much about change, continued change.
But with respect, James, when Rishi Sunak changes his mind on HS2, for example, he says that is something that is to do with evidence and that is to do with change, whereas you're calling Keir Starmer a flip-flopper. Aren't the two men doing roughly the same thing?
Well, no, the difference is that Rishi Sunak is a new Prime Minister. He's in a position now where he's making decisions. He's having to review issues like net zero and HS2. This is a man who's made very bold decisions over the past 12 months, and the party's becoming more conservative, so I'm enjoying the ride. But what's important is this is a Prime Minister who's not afraid to make tough decisions. He's leading from the front, and trust me, as a military man, I know all about leadership. This is a guy who's making decisions, he's got the party locked in behind him, who's doing a really good job. The polls are closing, and there's a lot to look forward to.